Hello, I'm going to teach you how to set up a CI/CD pipeline through GitHub Actions. And if you're wondering why you're going to use GitHub Actions, there are so many other services and free open source tools, and also cloud service provide their own code pipeline services. GitHub Actions is the most popular tool to implement this functionality. It's very easy to set up, free to use, and also you probably have completed half of this task. Chances are your code is already uploaded on the GitHub. So we're going to focus primarily in this video on completing the second part of the process, which is connecting the GitHub Actions server with your cloud server. So let me show you a diagram showing how this pipeline works. So first your code move from your machine, your computer to the GitHub servers, and then we're going to implement another layer above your repository that will work like a trigger. So every time you push a new update to your code, the GitHub Actions will go take the code as like someone taking a package, delivering it to someone. It will take the whole files and then deploying it on your server. Of course, you'll have to define how GitHub could install and deploy your code using the YAML syntax. So let me show you in this document what are the steps we're going to go through. So first, we're going to create a simple PHP file. And the reason we're going to use a simple PHP file is because I want to focus first on how we can establish the communication between our server, our cloud server, and the GitHub Actions. And then we're going to move into a more complex scenario where we're going to deploy a Node.js app. First, we're going to create a repository on GitHub, and then we're going to connect this remote repository to our software, our folder on our machine. And then we're going to allow our cloud server permission over our repository on GitHub. The reason we're going to do that is because maybe your repository is private. You don't want to expose your code to the public. So you will need to give access to your server to be able to pull the repository from GitHub and deploy it on the server. The next step is we're going to also reverse the same thing we have done here. We're going to give GitHub Actions permissions over your server. We are going to literally give the GitHub Actions server a full control over your server to go remove and deploy these files. So I'm going to begin by creating a simple PHP file. I'm going to open this I'm going to open cursor. I'm going to create a file, test.php, and I'm going to display something very simple. I'm going to say echo, which something like print. This is test number 1. I'm going to save the file, and then I am going to create the repository. I have already created the repository, so I'm going to link it to my folder, git init. Then I am going to remote at origin. I'm going to copy the link. Then I'm going to add the file. I'm going to commit them first. Now let's keep the same number so we recognize which is which. And then I'm gonna push origin main. Now let's refresh. And now we see the file we have created. Let's move to the next step. Now, let's grant GitHub access over our EC2 server. I'm going to use the keygen to generate a public and private keys. If you're not familiar with that, let me simplify this. So if you buy a new apartment, first thing you're going to do is you're going to go in a store to buy a locker. The locker will come with a key. So you're going to deploy or replace the old locker with the new one, and you're going to have the only key that you can use to access this apartment. So by using keygen, we're going to generate 2 files. They are 2 linked files. One is going to be working like a locker. This is going to be the public file. The other one is going to work like a key. This will be the private file. We are going to deploy the public key on our server, and we're going to put the private key in the GitHub actions. So GitHub Actions can have access over our server. And we're going to do the same process, but in reverse. We are going to put the public file in the GitHub Actions, and we're going to use the private key on our EC2 server to allow our server to access the repository. So I'm going to first begin with granting GitHub access to our EC2. I'm going to copy this command, and I'm going to open the terminal, new tab, and let me change this title, GitHub Access Server. And also, I'm going to modify the file path, GitHub Actions. Okay, let's keep it like this, Actions 1 or GitHub Access Server. Okay, I'm going to show the files. I'm going to see the sh OSLA. I'm going to cat read the public file. I'm going to copy this public key. Now we are placing the locker in our server. It's like creating a gate in our server. I'm going to clear. I'm going to modify the authorized keys, and I'm going to paste the key. And then I am going to move to the settings, and then secrets and variables, actions. Now we're gonna create a new repository secret, and I am going to read the private. I'm gonna copy the key, and then I'm gonna paste it in here. Let's give it a title. Let's make it EC2 private key. Okay, now we're gonna need to create another repository secret. We are going to say EC2 host. I'm gonna copy the IP, and also we are going to add EC2 user. This is the SSH user that you use to access your server. And if you have EC2 server, the user always gonna be EC2 user. Now we are going to use a YAML file to test this implementation. We're gonna confirm that GitHub has access on our server. I'm gonna create a GitHub folder and workflows. And inside it, I'm going to create this .yaml file. I have a YAML file I have already prepared to test the implementation. Well, this YAML file is very simple. If we're gonna deploy something that require installing dependencies or libraries, then it's gonna be a little more complex. We will have to add more commands in here to tell GitHub Actions and also our server how it could install and deploy the app properly. But in that situation, we are just deploying a very simple PHP file. It's just gonna copy the repository, which contain only one PHP file, and it's gonna place it in our EC2 server. So I'm gonna say deploy testing, deploy a simple PHP file. Let me explain some things in here. YAML is not a programming language. It's kind of like a protocol between you and GitHub Actions and your server. This is how you tell the GitHub Actions and your server what to do with the code in order to get things to work properly. So it's a very simple syntax. You can learn it easily, but you don't have to. You can just ask the AI to generate the file for you. What you care about is the part where you're gonna like give commands to, like if you have a Node.js, you probably need to run the npm install, and if you want to remove a temporary file or maybe notify your testing team about a new deployment, everything you're gonna do in this part. So this is a very simple command. It's just gonna resync the repository with the folder we are operating in. So, and here these are the kind of variables we have defined here. So you have to make sure that it matches what you have just created. So I'm gonna make sure that it it fit what I have created. Private key. Let me go back. I have made something. Okay, the private key. Sorry, what I'm doing. Private key, host, user, user. And here you can define the path in the secrets, but I think you don't have to. Well, let me also do it this way. So I'm gonna say the path is gonna be, this is where you're gonna deploy your code. So if you're deploying in Node.js, you don't have to care about the path. You can just put it in a root or something. But if you are deploying something that needs to be executed in the browser, like PHP file, for example, you have to make sure the path is exactly matches your Apache configuration. So I'm gonna put var test. I'm gonna call it deploying path. Target path. I'm gonna change it to deploying path. Now I'm gonna run this. I'm gonna get add all, get commit, first YAML file, get push origin name. Let's go into the GitHub actions and hopefully we will see it work. Now we see the first attempt. Now the GitHub actions are trying to reach our server to deploy our repository in that very specific folder. So let me make sure that the folder exists. So I'm going to say var www.html test. Okay, the folder doesn't exist, so I'm going to create the folder. Well, let me make sure that the parent folder exists. CD. Okay, it exists. Now make there test CD test. Okay. Now the folder is empty and the first attempt has failed. Let me see the reason. Host key verification failed. Okay, I had to take a minute to debug what's happening, and it seems like this issue is because I forgot to add the strict host checking. You usually have to add this because the SSH sometimes ask you questions like, is this a trusted host, and etc. So let's save and try again, and I'm gonna add all. I'm gonna get commit and second attempt. Get push origin name. Okay, now let's go and see. Hopefully it's gonna work this time. So now I see the complete job, and let's go in the EC2 ls. Let me see the folder first. Okay, now we can see the test.php, and also we can test in the browser to open the file. Okay, as we can see, this is what we're expecting. Let me add this. Let me try to do a modification and try our functionality if it work. Now get add all, get commit. Okay, number 2, get push origin name. Okay, let's go back to the actions. And now number 2 is trying to deploy our update. Okay, deployment successful. Now let's go and refresh the page. Well, as you can see now, our update has been deployed. What we did here is we have connected the GitHub Actions server to our cloud server. I want you to understand something very important here before we move to the next part. What's happening here is GitHub servers is the one that instantiate the request. So it takes your package, takes your files, and go to your server and deploy it on the server. Your server doesn't pull the code from GitHub. In some cases, people do the opposite. People just use the GitHub YAML just to notify the server about something that happened. There is some update happened, and the server then instantiate the request. The server then pull the code from the GitHub and deploy it on the server. So what we did here is the GitHub Actions is the one that instantiated the process. they send the files to your cloud server. So you don't need to give access or permission to your server. But still, we need to do that because in some cases you have to do it the other way. So let's try to give permissions to our server over our repository. Uh, I'm going to this server and I'm going to, uh, okay, server access on GitHub. And I'm going to change the file name also, git server over GitHub. Okay, now let's check what we have now. We have GitHub server over GitHub. We are going to take the public key and we going to place it in, we are going to go to the settings, deploy keys, add deploy key, and then I'm going to add the code and I'm going to put the title server access over GitHub. I forgot to add the right permissions, but you can approve it. So I'm going to check SSH. Um, I'm going to use the get at github.com to check if we really have access over GitHub. The authentication succeeded as I can see, but let's confirm. Let's go in CD for test and let me remove everything and then I am going to pull uh, the code in it get. Sorry. Yeah, pull. Okay, this is because I forgot to mention this step. We will have, as you can see here, it it says that no such file or directory because in the config where let me config, I have this file in the config to tell our SSH where to find the private key file, which is not valid as I can remember. Let me cancel the edit. Okay, I can see the file in here. I apologize, I have forgot the file name. So again, let's go back and I will remove the file and I'm going to put the new file. And now let's again try to the pull code. Okay, as you can see, we've succeeded in pulling the code uh, from our GitHub repository. So that means our server has access on our repository. So now let's try to deploy something more complex. As I said, let's clear this. I'm going to instantiate an npm project in a npm init y. I'm going to install Express and I am going to create server.js. Let's remove the test.php file and let's say const express. I'm gonna use the auto completion actually. Let's okay. This is test number 1. Let's just test this on our server first. Node server.js. Okay, let me first because I always forget to do this. Okay, start. And now let's add localhost. This is test number one. And now let's try to push uh, the code get add all get commit m node one. And I am going to push get push origin main. Okay, what will happen here is uh, our GitHub will fail to deploy the project because we will need to run the npm install to install the node models, and we also need to run the server. And so we will have to modify the YAML file. We can see that the files has been copied in here, but it's not installed. So you can see that these are the files has been copied. But to run the npm, we will have to add more extra commands in the YAML file. So let me copy a file from my computer. Let's copy and let's create a new version because I want to take. Let's put it in another site, and I am going to copy the EC. Now you also have to change these variables. EC2 host, EC2 don't need the path, EC2 user. Oh, actually we need it. Deploying path. And also still we need to modify it in here. Deploying EC2 user, EC2 host. Okay, now we are good to go. I'm going to actually replace this by the app name. I don't need to add variable for this or secret for this. So I'm gonna call it like our app. And if you don't know what is PM2, this is process manager. Because in the cloud, you cannot just use the node start or node server.js. You need to use a library to take care about starting and restarting your app. So let's copy this and replace by test. Now let's get commit and node to get push origin main. Well, I don't need this anymore. So let's go and check the actions. Hopefully it will work. Okay, build application is failed. Let's debug this error, and I see that npm error missing script build. I think we are trying to build, but we don't have a script responsible for building our script. So let me check build. Okay, let's remove that step. And let's try again in git add, get commit, and YAML3, get push origin main. Okay, let's hope that it will work. Installing dependencies, error. Okay, host key verification failed. Again, the same error. I think we are getting the same error we've got in the step before. Let me copy from the alt file and let's and hopefully this time gonna work. Again, we are getting problem. Restart application on server. Well, let's see what this error means. It says process or namespace our app not found. It says the process not found, which means the process manager cannot find this process to do a restart. I have read the documentation of the PM2, And it says that if you're trying to restart your app and your app isn't working, it's gonna start it. I don't know what is causing this error, but let's try to, maybe I have to put the same name. Let's try. Let's see what's happening. Install dependencies. Again, namespace app not found. Let me try a solution I have found on uh, the Stack Overflow. I'm going to create an ecosystem.config.js. I'm gonna put this code, but first let me take the name of our app and let's put it here. Script server, and going to replace it by this one. Okay. EC2 user, EC2 host, deploying path. Okay. Now get add, get commit, and YAML 7, get push origin made. Let's see what's happening. What happens? Well, we got the service working. It seems that this method works very well. So let's again check PM2 list. Okay, now we have the project working. Let's take the IP and check. Okay. Okay, this is test number 1. Now let's modify server and test number 2. And again, get add all, get commit them. Uh, okay, test number 2, get push origin name. Okay. Now let's check the actions. Test number 2. Install dependencies, deploy to the server, restart application. It has successfully restarted. Complete job. Now let's refresh. Sorry, not this file. Let's refresh. Okay, now number 2.